You also made a claim that you've been hearing 512 gigs of onboard memory. Obviously, our Switch systems that we all have now come in at a whopping 64 gigs. Is 512 big enough for you, Josie?
I think that'd be awesome, honestly, to have that much storage preloaded on it. That'd be fantastic because every time I get a Switch, I got to get a new memory card alongside it. So, I mean, having that amount of storage so that we don't even, I don't know, so it's not quite so much of a problem if you need to download a game that isn't on a cartridge or something like that. And maybe we can deal with a little bit bigger file sizes because of the added storage space. I think that's a great thing.
That would kind of be one of that's one of the things I kind of pondered in my video though. It's like if they're planning for so much more space, like that
Like,
almost
how big are the games?
right, yeah. Because I mean
Yeah.
I don't expect Nintendo to make a massive jump. Like Tears of the Kingdom was their biggest game, and that's around 16 gigs or so. Like I don't imagine them all of a sudden like here's a 40 gig game. Like
Right.
so I guess that plays more into third party stuff, but is that a product of memory prices going down, Nate, or is that a product of necessity because of potential game sizes on this system from what you've heard so far?
On that, I would speculate that it is a factor of the two. Games are getting bigger in size, as was mentioned, and third parties are going to bring, you know, big games over. We can use Call of Duty as an example. That game is going to require meaningful size, especially if you go digital. And the cost of flash memory like this is coming down. And if you're Nintendo, you're looking to save a little money by using an LCD screen. So now if you can come in with, you know, substantial flash memory for digital game purchases, that you could have games now ranging from 50 to 100 gigabytes in size. You want to ensure that the consumer can download games because digital is important to all console manufacturers. So I think it's a factor of both. It's a necessity, and it's also a the price is there and they can make it happen.
And of course, the big topic that everyone seems to have a very outspoken opinion about backwards compatibility. We did hear in the VGC report that some developers were hoping for like no backwards compatibility because they want to try to increase profit margins and resell games. What have you heard anything about that? Is it still up for debate? Because I feel like, if you have a development kit out there, you're kind of having to factor stuff like that in, assuming that they're going to use at the very least a similar cartridge medium, because those cartridges themselves, like, have they gone substantially down in price? I don't think so, because they charged you $70 for Tears of the Kingdom because they had to use a bigger cartridge. Like that's where I think things get very, very murky for me, because if we're talking about games that require 40 gigs or something like that, our company's going to be like, oh yeah, sure, well, 64 gig cartridge, yeah, that's perfect, we'll go right ahead and do that. Like, that to me is where things get very, very strange to me. Have you heard anything about the physical medium for this system, assuming that it is, which I think is a safe assumption, at least for now? Have you heard anything about the physical medium as far as being the same or similar, or where do you go with that? Because I think that plays a huge role in the backwards compatibility of the system, maybe even more so than we shouldn't say more so, but almost as much as the system on a chip situation is.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be game cards or cartridges, however you want to refer to them. In terms of the technology, I, I would speculate that there is a reasonable chance that the technology will change to a 3D NAND, which would aid Nintendo in this area, where they can make it larger sizes for a slightly cheaper price in comparison to what they're doing now, which is a 2D NAND solution. So if they do change game card technologies, it would introduce new avenues for them to have bigger game card sizes at more reasonable prices that third parties can use, because they definitely want to avoid those situations, if at all possible, where, let's just use Call of Duty as the example. if you have the Warzone, you have the multiplayer, you have the campaign, and given that it was said in court that the Switch version or any Nintendo version will have content parity, meaning it has to match what the other consoles are getting in terms of content, you don't want to release this game on a 4 gigabyte game card of the current Switch use and then require individuals to then download 86, 90 gigabytes of storage, because now what your onboard memory, that flash memory, becomes very important to a publisher. Nintendo launched with 32 gigabytes, eventually went up to 64, but that worked for them. A lot of the games were in small file sizes. We're moving into now a piece of hardware that, depending on its power range, let's just say for the topic, it's PS4 level. How many PS4 games from third-party developers were coming in less than 50 gigabytes?
Not a lot.
So you definitely want to make things a little easier for your publishing partners by finding a new storage solution when it comes to the physical media. And the technology is available. It's just going to be a question of whether or not Nintendo opts to utilize it. That I don't have any real insight on at the moment. And unfortunately, that would also extend to the backwards compatibility topic. While I have heard things, I'm just not at a point where I can really give any opinion or information on it at the moment.